Hi guys, welcome back to the channel. This is Master's Thread. On today's tutorial, I'll be showing you how to make this shirt gown with this trendy side gathers with a bell sleeve. And this is what we have for the back. If it's something you're interested in, keep watching. Give this video a thumbs up. Let's get right into this tutorial. So starting off, I've gone ahead to mark 3 inches for my button placket allowance. Now at the top, I'll go in and mark half of my shoulder measurement. I'm taking that measurement from after the 3 inches I just measured. Okay, now at that point where I have my shoulder measurement, I'll go down by 1 inch for my shoulder slant, and I will just use my rule to slant it out to this other end like so. Okay, then after that, to get the armhole depth, I will go ahead and divide my round bust by 6 and then add 1.5 inches to that. So I'm going to place my tape from my my shoulder slant point where I came down by 1 inch, and I'll mark that, and then I'll also mark what I have on my shoulder on that point. Now this is to ensure that I have a very straight line, and I'll make a vertical line going upwards and another one going to the side like so. Okay, so this is what we have, as you can see. So the next thing we're going to do is to go in and place our other vertical measurements. Now I'll be using the measurement I have there. That's the armhole depth, which also the chest line. I'll be using that also as the bust line. So I'll be taking my bust measurement on that line. So I'm not going to put down the bust point. Okay, so I'm just going ahead to put the shoulder to waist, the shoulder to hip, and then the shoulder to the full length where I want this to end. Now note that this shirt dress can be short, okay, but since it's a dress, it needs to at least get below your hip depending on how you want to style yours. So I'm going in with my rule to just make horizontal lines at those points, and I'll go ahead and just label that is the chest, the waist, the hip, okay, and the end line is our full length. Now the next thing I want to do is on my armhole depth. I'll go ahead and measure what I have there, and I'll get the midpoint by folding my tape into 2. I'll make a point there, and then I'll take quarter of my round bust on this point like this horizontal. You can see here I'm placing my tape, and I'll just place it down. Now on that point where I marked the midpoint of my armhole, I went in by half of an inch. The next thing I would do is to just take my curve rule to connect the point I have made like so. So this is the perfect way to get your armhole curve. So I will just go in with my rule and just curve out that end. Okay, so there we have it. Now after doing that, the next thing we want to go ahead to do is to place our horizontal measurement. That's the circumference of your body. Now starting with the waist, I'm placing my round waist divided by 4. I'll place that down. Now I want to add an ease allowance of 1 inch and then a stitching allowance of 1.5 inches. You can also use 1 inches for your stitching allowance. Remember, this is a shirt dress, and from the beginning of this video it has a belt behind, so I'm just placing that there. Now I'll do the same thing to the measurement I have at the armhole area. I will just add the allowances I'm using, which is 2.5 inches in total. Then on the hip, I will go ahead and mark quarter of my round hip measurement and then place the allowance I'm using for that. Okay, so I'll just go in with my rule to connect the points I've made together like so. Okay, so now for the full length, we're going to take the measurements we have on the hip and then place that on the full length of this. So note that your measurements are taken after the button placket allowance, that's after the button allowance you took. So I just took that measurement of what I had at the hip, placed it also at the full length, and I'm just going to connect it to meet with where my line ended at the hip point. Okay, so you can see this is what this looks like. Now for the neckline of this, so note that it is a shirt, so our neck shouldn't be wide okay, because it's a shirt. You don't want this coming out looking bad. And another thing is that I will not be increasing the back. Okay, I'm just going to work with the normal measurements we use while making our normal blouses. All right, so I will not be increasing the back to be higher than that of the front. Now for the neck width, okay, I'm going to use a neck width of 2.5 inches for the front. So it means the neck width for the back will also be 2.5 inches. So I'm going to use a neck width of 2.5 inches, and then I will extend that my slanted line to meet that point. Remember before I just slanted that, so I'm going to extend that there so that I don't make any mistakes while cutting. And for the depth, I'm going to use 3 inches. Now for this neck width and neck depth, consider the fact that we're making a shirt with a collar. You can actually use 3 inches for the width and then 2.5 inches for the depth. Now in my case, I'm using 2.5 inches for the width and then 3 inches for the depth. So you can decide to use 3 inches for the width and 2.5 inches for the depth. The idea is that the neck area should not be too open. You know, it's not like your normal blouse, not like the normal blouses or normal tops. This has like buttons in front, so you still have that ease of wearing it. If the neck is too open, it will not look nice at all. So that is all we're doing for the front. I hope you got that. Okay, so the next thing I will just do is to go ahead and cut this out. After cutting it out, this is what it looks like. So for this neck area, we're just going to blend it in into the button allowance area so that they are matching perfectly. So you can see what this looks like for the front. I will just label that and keep it aside. Now for the back of this, we just have like little differences between the front and the back. Now what I'm going to do is to go ahead and just draft out the basic things like that we off the front. The difference between the front and the back is the armhole, the arm sec, and neckline. Okay, so that's the one thing we need to take note of. I will just go ahead and just draft this out and then show you the difference between the front and the back, like I said. Now for the back armhole, the armhole doesn't extend into it, meaning that the front armhole is 1/2 inch deeper than that of the back. You can see what we have there. All right, that is how the armhole of the back looks like, even for our various clothes while making different patterns. This is what it looks like. Okay, so I'm just going ahead to do the same thing like I did in front. Now the back doesn't have any extra allowances. That's because we are not using a zip for the back, and we are also not having buttons at the back. So I just did the same thing. Now for the neck depth of the front, I'm using a neck depth of 1 inch against same 2.5 inches of neck width like that we used in front. So your neck width of the front needs to match with that of the back, so that while you're joining the shoulder, they are matching perfectly. So after doing that, I will just go ahead and cut this out. Like I said, the difference between the front and the back is just the neckline and then the arm. So this is what we have on this. This is the pattern. This is what it looks like. Now for the curve where we have our gathers, from the waist point, I'll go down by 4 inches and I'll make a mark there. Okay, so you can decide to extend yours lower if you want it to be lower. Now I'm going to go in from the edge by 4 inches also. Now take note of your button allowance. You need to take this measurement from after that allowance. Okay, note that. So I just mark my 4 inches. What I'll do next is to connect this point together. So the first thing I'll do is to just rule a line going upwards firstly, like so. Okay, and then I will go in with my free hand to just curve this point to meet together. So you can use your curve rule to achieve this. Okay, and like I said, if you're making like a longer version of this, it means you want to go down more, or you want to start your gathers from that point, or you start from the waist. There are different variations to styling this pattern of gathers. Okay, so I just touch up that line to ensure that is well, and I'm going in with my scissors to cut it out. All right, so this is what we have. We're going to do the same thing to our back piece and then go ahead and cut it out on our fabric. Okay, so now the next thing I'll do is to just label this point. I'm just labeling that S. That will tell me that that is the side, because that will be on fold while I'm stitching it down. So I'll explain to you later. I've gone ahead to cut it on my fabric. I have this is the back. I added half of an inch to the top and then 1 inch to the bottom, and ensure to cut this on fold. Okay, remember for the back it needs to be closed. Now for the front, while cutting it out, open up your button allowance area. I also added half of an inch to the shoulder area and then 1 inch to the base of this. So we're going to start stitching this. We're starting off with our front. I will just take off my pattern and then we're going to start. So the first thing we're going to do is to fold up the button allowance by folding 1 inch inwards and then folding another 1 inch. Go ahead and just stitch it down to keep them in place. You can iron this out with your hemming gum so that it stays perfectly before stitching down. So this is what it looks like after I finished. You can see the both of them. It looks nice already. The next thing we're going to do is to stitch the shoulders together by placing this right side to right side. We're going to bring in the back piece, align it with the two pieces we have for the front, and go ahead and match the shoulder areas and stitch it down by half of an inch on both sides. So this is what it looks like after I finish doing that. Okay, now the next thing we want to work on is and collar. I will just go ahead and take the measurement I have around the neck area from one end to the other. I will take that measurement. Okay, now I'm going to draft this out on my paper or my pattern. Start off by just ruling a line which will serve as my starting point for this. Okay, so my paper is on a fold. So what I'll do is to take half of the measurement I got from that measurement I took around the neck area. So the what I'm working with for this is 19 inches. So 19 divided by 2, 9.5. So I'm going to mark 9.5 inches from the center of this paper. That's where I have my fold. I'm going to mark it down there, make a mark there, and then I will rule a line going upwards. Now this is to help me note that this is where this ends. So you need to be accurate with your collar. Okay, you need to ensure that you are using the right measurement for this so that you don't end up your collar doesn't end up looking bad. Now the next thing I'm doing is I just went up at that point by 3 inches, and I'm going to just mark it on several points. Okay, so I'm going up from the line I had by 3 inches, and I will just connect it together like so. Okay, so I have that line like that. Now to get the collar stand, I will just use 1 inches for my collar stand. I'm marking 1 inches from the end to this other end, and I will also connect that together. Right, so you can see the one we have below is the collar stand, the one at the top is the collar fall. Okay, so at the edge of this, I'll go in by 1 inch. That's because the collar stand is longer than the collar fall by 1 inches. I'll go in by that, and then I'll connect it slanted this way to meet the tip of my collar stand, like so. So you can see what we have there, and at this edge here I will just create a little curve at that end. So you can see this is all for drafting our collar. It's so easy and straight to the point. We're going to be having this piece together, not separated. So I'll just go ahead and cut this out. So this is what we have it looking like. I'll go ahead and cut this out on the fabric. So this is what it looks. I added half of an inch all around, and then at the base I added 0.75 inches at that point. So the next thing I'm going to do is to just take this up. So what I used for this was Estee. That's because I don't have any collar. I just used Estee and I applied it to both of my piece because I have two pieces of this, and I went ahead to just stitch around this, leaving the down part of this open. So I'm going to flip it this way, like so, and then go ahead and give it a really good press so that it is relaxed for use. Okay, so this is what it looks like after I finish pressing it. I just folded one end inwards, which will be for the cover, and I'm going to fold this up and get the midpoint of this and make a notch at that point, like so. I will bring in my piece and I will just fold that up also and make a notch at the center of this. That's because I want to match them together and ensure that I sew this perfectly. So after doing that, I'm just going to align the notch part together and then pin it to keep it in place. So I advise you use Estee if you're using this type of fabric. So I actually used like a pure cotton fabric for this tutorial, and it came out looking very nice. So I'm going to pin this down and then stitch it. So I've done that. This is what it looks like. Okay, next thing I'm going to do is to use this other part. I'm going to fold that up and then go ahead and pin it down, after which I will just stitch it to cover up the stitches I have inside. So this is what it looks like after I finished. By the time I'm through with this, I'll just give this a really good press to make that relaxed. So the next thing we'll work on is the sleeve of this. Now I've gone ahead to fold up this piece. I have this into 4, and the width I have here is 14 inches of width. Now at the top area here, I'm just going to I'm going to take the length. Now the length, you should, whatever length you're working with for your sleeve, you should add at least 6 inches extra to that. So the length for me was 24. I added 6 inches, which made it 30. Now from the top of this, I went down by 4 inches, and I'm going to just roll a line at that point to indicate it. Now after that, from the center fold of my piece, I'll go in and mark 4 inches again. Then I'm going to get the midpoint between that point I just made and the 4 inches line I marked earlier, like so. So on this part where I came down by 4 inches, I went on to mark my half of my round sleeve, and I'm just going in with my rule to connect it. So this is a simple way to connect your sleeve. You can use this for your sleeves. It always comes out looking nice. Okay, the different times I've tried it. So I'm just going to connect it like so. You can see how I'm placing my rule, and I'm going to place it this way also, and then connect it to the other line I have at the other end. So the next thing I would do is to just add my stitching allowance to this. I'm going to add my stitching allowance to this. So now for our belt effect, remember the wrist area is always small for everybody. So mine is actually 7 inches, the round wrist, but what I have here is 14. That means times 2 of my usual round wrist. So I'm going to use this by connecting from the edge of this. You can see how I'm connecting it from the end to what I have at the top area, like so. Okay, so this is what we have for our sleeve. I'll just go ahead and cut it out. This is it for our sleeve. I'm just making notches. Now the first thing we're going to do for this is to hem the edge of our sleeve. So I'm going to go on and just fold it up by half of an inch firstly, and then fold another half of an inch. So I've done that. This is what it looks like. Okay, now from the edge of our sleeve, I'll go up by 6 inches. I'm just going to make a mark there, 6 inches. So depending on how you want your bell effect to be, you can go higher or you can reduce that, but for this tutorial I'm using 6 inches. So I just marked that 6 inches to the end, and I'm going to use my rule to connect that in a straight line. Okay, after that I will just fold up that point like so. You can see how I'm folding this down. I'm just going to fold it up and ensure that it's well placed like so. Okay, and then from that point I will be marking half of an inch upwards this way. So you can see I'm just marking half inch upwards that way, and I'm also going to make lines at that point. So what I'll do is to take this over to the machine and just follow this line I have like so and stitch it down. So I've stitched it. This is what it looks like. So the next thing we want to work on is our elastic. Now to get your elastic, just simply place your elastic around your wrist. If you want it to be free, just take the free measurement of that elastic. If you want it to be tight, take a tight measurement. Now I'm showing you how to place this in between. The reason for that the entire thing I was doing before this is so that our elastic is hidden inside of this. Okay, it's not showing from the wrong side of our fabric. So this is what it looks like after I finish doing that for both sleeve. I will just go ahead and attach this to the area where it is meant to sit on my dress piece. So you can see how covered that is on both sides. Your elastic are not visible. That is what it should look like. So I've gone ahead to stitch it down. I also stitched down the side and I attached the belt. So the belt is 3 inches of width, and then I folded that up and then just stitched it down. So the next thing we're working on is the gather effect. Now bringing back this piece, remember we labeled this. I'm just going to be dividing this piece by 1.5 inches, and then I will extend this line upwards. So I just marked 1.5 inches. I'm dividing this by 1.5 inches so that I have this equal. After that I will just use my rule to just rule lines like so, and I'll cut this out. Okay, so I'm going to label this so that I make no mistake. So I'm labeling this from 1 to 6 and I will cut them out. Okay, the next thing we're going to do is to place it on our fabric. So for this fabric piece, I have 2 of them. I want to cut the 2 for the both sides together. You're going to have one end of this like folded up, like it should be closed, unfold. Okay, that's the part that will sit at the midpoint of your joining. So what I'm doing now is just marking 1 inch all through. Remember, I added 1 inch to the base of my main piece, that's the dress. So I'm adding 1 inch to this also. Now this is because this gathers and the main piece, they need to be matching. So whatever you do to that the end, you should do to this also. Now from that point there, I will be placing my piece starting from the last one, which is the number 6. Remember, that was the one we labeled S. That's the one that stays by the side. So that one should be on the folded end of your fabric while you're placing this. And I'm placing this with a difference of 5 inches. So I'm just placing 5 inches difference between them. So if you want your gathers to be fuller, you can use more than 5 inches. If you want it to be less, you can use less than this. Okay, so it depends on what you want. You can decide to use 5 inches, or you can decide to use less or more. Totally depends on what you want. So I just place this down all through, and I'm going to cut this out, and I'll be adding 1/2 inch to the top part, which will serve as the joining allowance. So this is what we have for this. I just made a notch to indicate the midpoint, and I'm taking away the patterns. So the next thing I want to do is to attach this to our piece. Now to attach this to our piece, I'm going to fold this piece up like so, and I'm going to mark from that end, from the edge there where I have the closed end there. I'm going to mark where I want the gathers to end. So this doesn't get to the end. There are actually different variations of adding such gathers to your clothes. You can decide to tweak it and just gather it all round your dress. But I went down by 5 inches from that point, and I'm going to make a notch there. So what I'll do is to replicate the same thing on this other side, fold the both of them together, ensuring that they are equal, and then I will go ahead and mark 5 inches also. That's because that is where I want the gathers to get to, and I will make a notch so that I don't forget that point. So the next thing I'll do is to bring in the piece for my gathers. Now remember, we made a notch to indicate the midpoint of our piece. That's the piece for the gathers. I'm going to align it to the center of my dress piece already. So you're going to align it to where you joined the front and the back together, and just pin it down firstly. Okay, then after that, I'll go ahead and pin the ends. So I'm going to pin from the ends, pin them together like so, and end at that point where I want my gathers to stop. And I'll do the same thing also to the other side. I'm going to place it from the edge, pin it together, and then stop where I want my gathers to end. Okay, so we have that down. So what we're going to do is that we're going to stitch that up like that plainly, and on this other point where we're going to just go ahead and pleat it to have our gather sitting at that point. So this is what it looks like after I finish doing that. You can see how nice this look. I did that for the same for the other side also. You can see how fine our dress is looking, and I went ahead to hem the edges of this. Now you can definitely rock your shirt gown like this. Okay, fix your buttons and rock it like this. I decided to add a little to this. I just cut off pockets for this. I'm just going to go ahead and attach it to the part I want. So this is the final look of the dress. Let me know in the comment section if you found this video helpful. If you're yet to subscribe, please subscribe to the channel. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.